Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our Tuesday update, recorded on the 22nd of April. Well, let's get into the forecast. We've got low pressure finally moving away from New Zealand after being with us for the Easter weekend. The rain, the thunderstorms, the isolated flooding, that is now moving out to the east, and behind it, we've got high pressure returning again. And in fact, between the two systems, a southerly flow coming up. So the really above average temperatures we saw over the weekend, like places like Martinborough and Hawke's Bay, are getting up to 27 degrees during the weekend. Overnight lows at the top of the country didn't drop below 20 degrees for some locations for a time. So that warm, humid weather more out to the east of the country now, and in comes the southerly. That means there'll be even a dusting of snow maybe on the tops of the mountains, but more importantly, we might be seeing some frosts around. Overnight temperatures are going to drop this week as that comes in. So some of you will love that. Certainly makes for easier sleeping in some areas, but for others it might just be a little bit too cold. Let's have a look at the rainfall, brought to you by resupply.co.nz. Big thanks to them for supporting us. Let's have a look at the rainfall through till Sunday, and a lot of the rain offshore because of the high pressure zone coming in. So we do see a bit of wet weather coming in around the end of the weekend, maybe around Sunday, going into Monday of next week. There's a low pressure system dropping down from the subtropics, and there's a low pressure system forming in the Tasman. So kind of normal weather to be getting some unsettled weather every week by the time we get to April, so that's not a surprise. So for now, fairly dry week ahead, but the top of the North Island and maybe again the top of the South, perhaps the areas most likely to see rain, while the lower half of the North Island and the lower half of the South Island look to be the driest. And I know in some areas, especially in the North Island, that's a bit of a pain because those are the areas that also missed out on some of the rain over the weekend. So even though we are saying a lot of places got rain relief, not everyone did. And so still some gaps in the rain. So a few showers on Wednesday into those drier eastern areas around the lower North Island, but it won't be very much, I'm afraid. As the high gets closer, those southerly winds will start to ease back. Locally, the winds could be a little bit of a different airflow. Like you've got a very small area of low pressure just off the coast of Nelson there, and off the coast of the west coast, really, actually. Not producing much in the way of anything other than tilting the airflow around. And so some of you might have a nor'easter, but it's when you track the origins, it's coming from south of the country for a time. So that's why your temperatures are down a wee bit. Many places, though, on Wednesday seeing larger dry spells returning. By Thursday, high pressure mostly in charge, the last part of that southerly curving up and around, and again coming in maybe as a nor'easter locally. So it may not be a very warm nor'easter as that moves around the country. High pressure is pushing in properly though. So apart from a couple of showers at the top of New Zealand and maybe on the west coast, Thursday morning looks to be a cold start, possible frosts around, and then it does improve with a fairly dry day on the way. Not a lot going on, a bit stormy down around Antarctica where that should be, and in the tropics, not a lot of energy for now, but we do still see some sinking low pressure. That's worth monitoring as we go into the long weekend, the next long weekend. So Anzac Day, we see high pressure out to the east of the North Island. That is bringing mostly settled weather, perhaps a bit of a northwest flow from Wellington wider upper southwards, and at the top of the country a bit more of a northeasterly flow. So that's kind of taking us back to perhaps where we've been in recent days. Not as warm though. Still a few showers in there, but it's mostly dry. Not a lot of wet weather. The pale blue just means the risk of a shower or two. Otherwise, not much happening. As we go into the weekend properly, now you start to see the high moving out to the east, looking a little similar to what we saw last weekend. Don't worry, not a repeat, but just the fact that there's this really big high ballooning out east of us and area of low pressure coming down. Not a tropical cyclone based on the modelling at this stage. It's just a low. As it comes through here on lunchtime Sunday, you've got the high out to the east, the low to the north, squash zone again on the outer edges of the high. That will pick up a little stronger in between the low and the high itself. So yes, end of the long weekend, we start to see those windier nor'easters picking up. Based on this map, not problematic, probably not even land weather warnings out at this stage based on that map, but that could still change. But for now, doesn't look too much of a serious problem on Sunday. Keep an eye on those forecasts as we go through this week in case that does change. By Monday, still doesn't look like a lot of severe weather, but it's messy weather map. Big high pressure zone out to the east, solid like an invisible brick wall in the sky, slows this stuff down, makes for a windier nor'easter, so that could pick up a wee bit more on Monday. The low itself, though, doesn't look like much of a problem. It's not a storm at this stage, but it does produce pockets of windy weather and a little bit of rain, although a lot of the country there not seeing huge amounts of rain. So that's one to keep an eye on going into the end of the weekend and the start of next week. So I'll be back again tomorrow, Wednesday, as we update you again. Have a great week ahead.